If you just got a new telescope for stargazing, here are the first things you need to do. I'm going to break this down into 5 simple steps. Step 1. You need to get the telescope set up. Now, beginner telescopes only have a few parts, but all of these parts need to be attached correctly for the telescope to function. Now, typically you start with a tripod, and attached to the tripod is a mount. This is what allows the telescope to point high in the sky. If the telescope doesn't easily point high in the sky, it's probably not designed for looking at space at all. Stargazing telescopes attach to a mount with a dovetail. That's this plate here. This is required to properly balance the telescope. Now, there is a shaky old design that uses this fork thingy with this rod thingy. Now, if your telescope has those, obviously you can skip this step. Now, tabletop Dobsonians like this are even simpler. Sometimes they even come fully assembled. In this case, you just need to extend the arm, attach the finder, and you're good to go. Except you're not. These telescopes need to be collimated, and I think while they try to do this at the factory, they don't often do a great job. Collimating means aligning the mirrors so that the light that comes in from space goes straight out the eyepiece. Now, you can get a laser collimator to help with this, but typically Newtonian telescopes come with a collimation plug. In this case, you remove the eyepiece and put in the plug. First, you observe the reflected image of the primary mirror. If that isn't centered, you adjust these 3 screws on the secondary mirror. Then you check that the image of the secondary mirror is centered in the primary mirror. If it's not, then you release these 3 locking screws and adjust the primary mirror with these 3 adjustment knobs until it's centered. When you're done, carefully retighten the locking screws. Now, also make sure you have a finder. And if it's a red dot finder, make sure it has a battery. These typically take 2032 batteries. Beginner telescopes typically include one of 3 types of finders. The most popular finder these days is the red dot finder. They're the cheapest. Quality finder telescopes are robust enough to actually see objects in deep space. Now, if your telescope came with a super tiny finder telescope, it's probably better to spend the $20 to upgrade to a red dot finder. My favorite finders are bullseye finders. These come on some beginner telescopes like the Celestron Inspire series, but they can also be found on Amazon for about $40. These project a bullseye onto the sky, which can be matched up with a corresponding bullseye in a stargazing guidebook, making deep sky objects easy to find. Now, if you have a refractor telescope like this, you need to make sure it comes with a 90-degree diagonal. Now, this goes right into the telescope tube right here. Now, if your telescope came with a 45-degree diagonal, or if there's no mount between the telescope and the tripod, then it's probably a spotting scope like this one and not designed for space at all. The travel scope is a good example of a scope marketed as a telescope, but it's not designed for looking at space. It's fine, there's a big bush over there. Now, the only exception to that I'm aware of is the Skywatcher Star Travel series, which comes set up for terrestrial viewing but can be modified for looking at space. Now, the eyepiece goes directly into the diagonal like this. If your telescope came with a Barlow, this is an optional lens that attaches to the eyepiece. Best to put it away until you've learned to use your telescope. Now, Barlows typically double the focal length of the telescope, making the instrument much more difficult to use. Setup step number 2. Whatever telescope you have, you need to make sure the telescope is balanced on the mount. This prevents slippage and slop when centering on a target. And you need to make sure that the axes have the appropriate tension. The goal is to be able to move the entire telescope with a light touch of the hand, but that it stays exactly where you put it when you let go. To balance the telescope, what we're going to do is release the axis so that it flops around like that. Then you release the tension on the dovetail so that it can slide up and down. So basically, now you just need to find the point in which the telescope is perfectly balanced. Retighten the dovetail and adjust the tension accordingly. Perfect. If you switch to a heavier eyepiece, like this, then you'll probably need to rebalance the telescope. As a side note, if you have a beginner telescope with EQ in the name, these are for very advanced users. People way smarter than me, and I have degrees in astrophysics and engineering. Now, if you happen to have picked up an EQ telescope and you intend to use it for stargazing, not photography, I've included instructions in a separate video. Check that video out, I'll post a link in the description. Step number 3, you need to make sure that the finder and the telescope are pointed at exactly the same spot, because I guarantee they don't align these two in the factory. You've got to do it yourself. This applies to both red dot finders and finder telescopes. If you're using a red dot finder, first turn it on. If that doesn't work, check or change the battery. Again, these generally take 2032 batteries. Okay, now choose a distant target. If you're doing this at night, use a bright star, but this is far easier to do during the day. I use a distant cell phone tower. Now this is a 3-step process. Step 1, get the target, in this case the cell phone tower, centered in the telescope's eyepiece. Step 2, move over to the finder without moving the telescope. Use this knob to move the finder left and right, and move this knob to move the finder up and down until the red dot is centered precisely on the target. Okay, step 3, after the finder is centered on the target, move back and forth between the finder and the telescope, making any final adjustments to make sure they're pointed at exactly the same spot. Now, if you've got a finder telescope, it may look as if you have 3 knobs, but one of them is often a spring, so keep that in mind. You may only need to adjust 2 of the knobs to get the finder centered. Step number 4, choosing an eyepiece and focusing the telescope. Beginner telescopes typically come with 2 eyepieces, a big one and a small one. The big one has a high focal length. This is your low-powered eyepiece. It's the one you want to use most of the time. The smaller eyepiece has a low focal length, usually below 10 millimeters. This is your high-powered eyepiece. This is used after you found your target with this eyepiece. It's used to make the objects look slightly larger. A telescope will not function without an eyepiece. And every time you add an eyepiece, you've got to focus the telescope. You also need to focus the telescope between users, because you'll typically be focusing the telescope to your unique prescription. Now, I stargaze without glasses, so this is often an issue for whoever is using the telescope after me. To focus the telescope the first time, you'll want to try to focus it on a bright star or the moon. Dimmer stars may be too out of focus to see at first. When you first point it at the bright star, it'll look like a big swirly blob or a donut if you're using a Newtonian. The donut effect comes from the placement of the secondary mirror. To focus the telescope, twist the focusing knob until the stars appear as tiny pinpoints of light, or the craters of the moon appear sharp. The moon should look at least like this, and Jupiter should look about like this. This particular Heritage telescope has a helical focuser. So to focus this telescope, you literally spin the eyepiece in its assembly. Now, if you want to zoom in to get a closer look at the moon, for example, that's when you switch to the higher powered eyepiece. Again, you'll need to refocus the telescope after you place in the new eyepiece. When you're ready to switch targets, you need to move back to your low-powered eyepiece and focus the telescope again. Now, if your telescope did come with a Barlow, you can experiment with it on the moon and planets. However, I found these are often more trouble than they're worth. Some telescope stores won't even sell them for that reason. Step number 5, finding targets in the sky using a technique called star hopping. At this point, everything's set up, you're outside, the telescope is in focus for your eyes, the finder is aligned, and now it's time to see cool stuff in space. Let's do this. Currently, it's December of 2025. As you can see, we're in a bit of a storm right now. Jupiter is high in the sky at night, so that's a good place to start. The moon and planets move from night to night, so it's best to check free stargazing apps like Stellarium just to make sure you know exactly where to look. As a side note, if it's cold where you live and you have a Newtonian telescope like this one, you'll want to set the telescope outside about 20 minutes prior to use so that the mirror can adjust to the outside temperature. Otherwise, your targets will look all wobbly as the mirror changes shape as it cools. When you're ready to move beyond the moon and planets, that's where you need a stargazing guidebook. Stargazing software typically oversells what you can realistically expect to see. And looking at your phone while trying to use your telescope is also not a good idea, because to see star clusters, galaxies, and nebula in your telescope, your eyes need to be dark adapted, and the phone prevents this from happening. Stargazing guidebooks are organized by season, so you basically just open up the book to the correct season and start working through the list of selected targets. Now, with a basic telescope, one without any push-to or go-to capabilities, you'll have to learn the process of star hopping. Here's how it works. You start by deciding which target you want to observe. Say we want to see the Orion Nebula. You'll need to identify the constellation in which that target resides. The Orion Nebula is in the constellation Orion, which is known for these 3 stars in a row. After you've identified the constellation in the sky, you need to precisely point the telescope's finder at the target's exact location. Basically, you cross-reference what you see in the sky to what you see on the page. This is why stargazing guidebooks include a bullseye for hard-to-find targets. After you get that spot centered in your telescope's finder, then you move over to the eyepiece and the target should be within your field of view. In a telescope designed for stargazing, you can center the target by making fine adjustments with either a slight touch of the optical tube or by slowly adjusting the slow motion controls. One thing you can try is using averted vision. That's where you look to the left or right in the eyepiece and try to observe the target in your peripheral vision, which is more sensitive to dim light. Now, as the Earth turns, objects rise in the east and set in the west. So if you're observing an object for more than a minute or so, you'll need to track it as it moves across the sky. If your telescope is properly set up, this should be trivially easy and can be done with either a slight touch of the optical tube or a twist of the slow motion controls. Now, I can't believe I have to say this, but make sure your stargazing guidebook has an author and is written by a human. Now, I've been writing stargazing guidebooks for almost 15 years now, and I can tell you Amazon is getting flooded with AI knockoffs of my books. These AI books have errors in them that will at best make you frustrated, but at worst make you dumber. I'm astronomer John Reed, and I included these steps in 50 Things to See with a Telescope for Kids, 110 Things to See with a Telescope, and several other stargazing guidebooks. Follow Learn to Stargaze for more stargazing adventures.